You work for Autism SA. Can you briefly explain what autism and Asperger's syndrome is?
I guess, like sexuality is a spectrum, people's cognition and communication skills and social skills are also a spectrum. So autism is described as a spectrum disorder, so that people on the autism spectrum have a range of different cognitive styles, different communication styles, and different ways of socialising. Some people can find a lack of social and communication skills very isolating, and people on the autism spectrum can have varying degrees of issues with communicating, socialising, and also across the spectrum we also see the presence of all-consuming interests. So people are interested in things to the exclusion of everything else, and that might be trains or timetables or religion or philosophy or mathematics or science or light switches, light globes, specific kinds of toys, Barbie dolls, Thomas the Tank Engine, whatever you like. An intense interest can be formed around a specific thing. And I guess a lot of people on the autism spectrum get a lot of joy out of their special interest because they have so many barriers in terms of communicating with the world. Some people with autism are totally non-verbal and rely on other means to communicate with the world. But every person on the spectrum has these overwhelming interests and passions.
And so how common is it in your line of work to see gay and lesbian people in the autistic community, and what are the statistics around this?
I can quote research to you because what we understand, and there's very little research into, when you go into an area of what's considered to be disability, people don't tend to want to look at disability and then look at sexuality. They don't occur to people at the same time. A lot of the presumption about people with disabilities, especially cognitive issues, is that they're the eternal child or that they're asexual, they don't have any sexual interests. But what we do know from research is that when researching a population on the autism spectrum is that there is actually a higher expressed rate of homosexuality. And some of the reason we think that is, it's no higher actual rate than the general population. It's just that people are less constrained by social norms. They don't fit into the social and communicative patterns of the world around them, and they're often more likely to, if they are homosexual, express that. Does that make sense? So that's what the research says, but often people still, there are out people who are on the autism spectrum. In fact, some of them, probably the most well-known authors who have been diagnosed with autism are there's a couple of gay women, a man who is considers himself pansexual and is also intersex. So there's a lot of people on the autism spectrum who write about themselves and express their sexuality. Those are the people who have that vocabulary that we understand.
So you were diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome after you realised that you were gay? That was years later, wasn't it?
I found the label that is Asperger's syndrome a long time after I knew that I was, wanted to be with women. It just the label, I guess, was just a confirmation of many things.
And your brother also is on the spectrum, and he's also gay.
Yeah.
And that posed the question for me of because as far as I understand, Asperger's and autism is genetic. can be genetic? And I just posed the question for me, I wonder if being gay is genetic, but, you know.
Well, there's a large genetic component to the autism spectrum, and my brother and I are very close in age and both in same-sex relationships, and I think that's been a pretty big thing for my parents to get their head around.
And so you've explored gender bending and challenging the way that people perceive your gender. Can you tell us about the poem, which we're going to hear, or we won't hear the one tonight, but we'll hear that on the CD, but a poem that you wrote called Duality was about the gender bending stuff in your life. Can you just talk about that poem?
Well, I guess a lot of my writing is about, it uses several voices and explores, I guess, an inner conflict that I did have around gender, and my journey with that, and being really locked specifically into society's idea of gender as a binary, as being black or white. You're either a man or a woman, and you had to choose between the two. And so a lot of my journey has been about exploring that and what the boundaries are, and coming to a comfortable resolution within myself that in fact you can be whatever the hell you want to be. And I came across, I guess, part of that journey was spiritual, which seems to be a bit of a theme tonight, and part of that journey was, in a spiritual sense, finding that a person can be meta-gendered, so they can be along, a point that they don't have to be locked into a binary. They can experience and express gender as a fluid thing from one day to the next. So that's the point that I came to, and it was funnily something that helped me along with that was actually something that my father said. And he's an old man now.
What did he say?
Well, I guess my brother, being a gay man, worked a lot in pubs in Adelaide, and my dad used to hang out at one particular establishment. So he would catch up with his kids, basically. And one day he said to me, well, I think all these things are, they're fluid, and they should be, sexuality and gender and stuff. And I thought, shit, that's my dad saying that, so I've got to get with the program.
So, Katharine, tell us about your goals and hopes for the future, both personally and professionally.
Well, I guess I'm essentially an activist, and I'm pretty passionate about putting forward some of the issues, exploring some of the areas of the world that are yet untouched in terms of conversations like we're having tonight. And I think it's important that people that I work with get to access those conversations, and that we get to change the world through conversation. And a lot of my passion is about reaching out in different ways to the world and changing people's perceptions of the autism spectrum, the spectrum of sexuality, and also I have a real passion for, facilitating people's sort of access to, I guess, a place of acceptance. Yeah, because that's where my journey's led me. It's to a place of acceptance, and I think everybody has a right to experience that.
Beautiful. There's some good hopes and dreams there. Thank you, Katharine.